Hi, everybody. My name is Sean, and I do love sports cards. And this week, I'm going to talk about something very different to the previous topics, talking about whether it was the 1977 Top Star Wars set. Very different this week, which was spurred on by I try to consume a healthy amount of hobby content, not too, enough to stay informed, but not so much that I'm overwhelmed all the time by all the different perspectives and things like that. And there was a fantastic podcast by Cage, who is a pretty big name in the hobby, who talked about what is true in the hobby that we don't talk about and the gambler's mindset that a lot of people have, right or wrong. You can have your own moral standpoint on whether or not you think it's right to take part in breaking and whether it's entertainment. It's the same. I work in an industry that is, how do I put this, parallel to the sports gambling industry. We work with sports gambling organizations, and it's a conversation that I'm having with staff members about the morality of sports gambling, and people tend to fall into a camp of whether or not it can be, is it entertainment or is it taking advantage of people? And you'll have your own perspective on those kinds of things. That's not what the video is about today, but I thought it was really, yeah, he's a thoughtful guy, Cage. We need more people like Cage in the hobby. Thoughtful, insightful, incisive, knowledgeable, experienced, willing to share what they know and what they feel. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but more voices like that. His story about his dad going bankrupt twice in effectively 30 living years is going to stick with me for a while and really make me think about things. And what it made me think about was the role that panic and anxiety play in the way that I approach the hobby. So I think a lot about the role that panic and anxiety play outside of my life, and that's a different conversation for other people. But just thinking about how often that panic, that anxiety that I have, that's part of who I am, rears its head in the way that I'm planning in the hobby. And there's probably three, they're overlapping, but there's probably three main places where panic and anxiety and these are things that we don't talk about. I don't think. I don't hear people talking about the role that panic plays or the role that anxiety plays. So sort of furthering on from what Cage is talking about, the role that panic can play. And the way that I see it is that anxiety and panic can show up three primary and overlapping ways, which is firstly, if you didn't know this, anxiety and panic can change the way that you perceive time. Okay. So I guess the core idea here is hobbies like this one operate in long cycles. Think about how long it takes for PSA to get back to you, for values to come around, for players to hit windows, all these kinds of things. But anxiety compresses those times, and it's about time distortion rather than action bias. So, I've had some cards up on eBay for 80 days, and I'm panicking that they've been up there too long. They feel stale. They've been up there too long. It's 3 months and it's been through the Christmas period. My sales feel slow, even if the cadence is normal. Grading timelines feel like deadlines. Like I want to know when is this going to happen? You know, when am I going to get these cards back? When am I going to sell them? When can we go? Can we go? Can we go? Can we go? And these quiet periods, rather than feeling like just quiet periods, and this is something that I'll come back to again in a little bit, they feel like decline rather than simply quiet periods. So I misjudge how long things should take. I treat the hobby subconsciously as something that runs on 3 to month, that's something that should run, for example, on a 6 month cycle, like a weekly thing. Like, why hasn't something happened this week? Why haven't I sold something this week? It's got to go. It's got to go. It's got to go. Um, and that's not good. Okay, because that can lead to making bad decisions, panic making decisions, dropping prices on things, which is how a lot of this manifests itself. And I know that somebody watching this might say, "Well, there's a buying opportunity to take from Sean." If that's the way that you approach things, then you and I are just going to have different thoughts on the way that we approach things. The second thing is, off the back of that, is that anxiety can make you prioritize momentum instead of sustainability. Okay. So I don't get scared of losing money. I get scared of things slowing down, and it distorts my priorities, right? So I want to, my model by definition feeds my anxiety. I want to keep submissions constant. It's got to be every month. If I miss a month, which at the moment, unless I make sales, I mean, if you want to hear a manifestation of anxiety, I'm funded through to, it's February now. My February submission is funded. my March submission is funded, and I have enough for April if I wanted to do a smaller one. But the idea of missing April would feel like failure because that movement has to be success. And I'm trying to optimize momentum rather than resilience. So I'm not protecting my bankroll. I'm not building up a buffer of cash in case I get back that first set of grades and they're all sixes. Okay. I'm protecting momentum because of that anxiety, because of that panic, because of that desire to keep things moving rather than the patience and looking at things for the way that they actually are. I want to protect the feeling. My brain is telling me to protect the feeling that things are moving rather than things actually are, which basically all of this manifests ultimately in anxiety and panic makes you act when you should wait. Okay. So the biggest mistakes that I've been making, or the near mistakes that I've been making, haven't come from bad knowledge or bad understanding or bad experience. They come from a discomfort with inactivity, and it's a bad action bias. So again, like I have to maintain that submission cadence. I want to change those prices down early because things aren't selling immediately. Like my Formula One cards, I have a Max Verstappen printing plate that I put up for 500, 550 pounds, which compared to other sales when I listed it, was significantly under confirmed sales, but it hasn't sold yet. And I want to adjust that price early to get it sold because it would be a big part of, it would fund 2 months worth of buys and submissions. But it's the off season for Formula One. It's not the buying time for Formula One. So I'm feeling the urge to drop prices to be able to buy during quiet periods. And I want to break these rules that I've made for myself because that stillness feels like failure. Okay. And I realized that risky decisions that I've taken, like when I bought two trainer boxes, Pokemon trainer boxes, they didn't come from ignorance. They're not bad buys. They're not bad things to have in the portfolio later on. But it was because I hadn't done anything for a week. And this is reinforced by living on Instagram and watching people doing things all the time. And, it's the adage of our age is that Instagram is not reality. Facebook is not reality. Twitter is not reality, or X is not reality. Okay, these are distorted versions of what you're seeing that not everybody is out there at card shows buying loads of things, flipping bangers every week, but that's not what that voice in your head says. And this brings me back to probably one of the best things somebody ever said to me, which I think is as applicable in real life as it is in the hobby, which is I sat down with a psychologist after I left the army because they were a little bit worried about me and I wanted to talk to me about how much I was panicking, how much I was worrying and things like that. And they said, the voice in your head that's telling you to do things or not to do things, you don't have to listen to that voice. Okay. It's probably good to listen to that voice a lot of the time, but you don't have to. It's not capital T truth. Okay, so when that little voice in your head is saying you need this card, you should buy this card, everybody's buying this card, you need to move now, you need to sell now, you need to go, you need to go, you need to go. If you're like me, you don't have to listen to that voice. Okay, you can ignore that voice. You can put the phone away. You can go touch grass, or go touch your trading cards if you want. So, just I suppose for anybody out there who is struggling with that keeping up with the Joneses momentum kind of thing. The great thing that I love about this hobby, I think, like a lot of things, is there is no standard measure for success. Okay, there's no scorecard. And even if there was a scorecard, you wouldn't believe it anyway. So you set your own scorecard. You only set your own score for success. Success might be for you collecting a set or making a certain amount of money or getting to a grail or reaching a certain amount of followers or whatever. Okay, but it's not dictated by anybody else. There's no pass or fail for this, unless you want it to be. So yeah, just something a little bit different this week. A little bit more, I don't know, was it exposed? Is the word I'm looking for. Not particularly appropriate in these days, but yeah, just thinking about that concept of panic and anxiety and what it means, and the measures that we can take to mitigate it, which usually involve taking a deep breath and stepping away from eBay for an hour and then coming back the next morning and saying, do I still really want this? And if you do, then go ahead and do it. But thinking through these things. But anyway, thanks very much for watching. Help my panic about growing my my reach and my audience by hitting like, hitting subscribe, sharing what you know, and hopefully I'll see you next week for a slightly more upbeat Sean Sports Cards. Thanks very much for watching.